the pilot of Gemini 10, I think, and it was very active proponent of space history. He was associated with the Smithsonian for a number of years and did a lot of good work promoting the kinds of things that we care about. So I wanted to just note that for the record as we were getting started. So let's see, we have a number of folks joining us today. I think let me just go through the commissioners that I see here. I think we have a quorum here. I see Commissioner Churchill, Commissioner Fahey, Commissioner Martinez, McAteer, O'Leary, Omig, and myself. That's 7. And I think we're expecting a couple of others to join shortly. And I see we have a couple of other guests with us today joining the meeting. Chris, can I ask you to introduce folks who are joining us for the meeting today?
Yes, we've got Sharon Masters, Executive Assistant for the New Mexico Museum of Space History. She's also the recorder for the meeting. We have Valerie Joe from the New Mexico Attorney General's Office. Mr. Johnny Powell, the president of the International Space Hall of Fame Foundation. Patrick Moore, the chair of the Space and the History Division for the Department of Cultural Affairs. Daniel Zillman, who does public relations, public affairs, jack of all trades for the Department of Cultural Affairs. Dave Dooling, education director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History. And Warren Eanes, who is the IT specialist from the Department of IT and works at the museum. Cliff Hudson, the chair of the International Space Hall of Fame Foundation Board of Directors, and Billy Jones, the deputy director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History.
Thank you all for joining us today. And I see that Commissioner Elder has now joined us as well. So that's
sorry to be late.
Understandable. Okay, let's see. First item on the agenda is to approve today's agenda. I don't have. Move. I'm sorry, I didn't.
I will so move.
Is there a second?
A second. Paulo here.
Hello. And we'll do a roll call vote. I see also that Commissioner Tappan has joined us. So I'm going to just proceed alphabetically. Commissioner Churchill.
Aye.
Commissioner Elder.
Aye.
Commissioner Fahey.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner McAteer.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Leary.
Aye.
Commissioner Omig.
Paulo.
Oh, I see he's muted. You're muted.
I'm muted. I say aye. Thank you.
Commissioner Tappan.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. And I think the other two have not arrived yet, so we will. So that is adopted. The next item is we made some corrections to the minutes from the December 11th meeting, and those have been distributed several days ago by Director Orwall. I hope you all had a chance to review any of the changes to those minutes that we talked about at the last commission meeting. And before I call for any approval, the vote of approval for those minutes, are there any comments or discussion on the corrections that were sent out? Okay, hearing none then, I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the December 11th meeting.
Before you make that motion, John, the one I received had my comment on page 2 in the comment section. Mm-hmm. And it was just unclear about the entire quote from Secretary Garcia Griego. And I wondered if that was corrected, whether the quotes were put in there. I just saw my comment in the Word document. I didn't see it corrected. It's
So
corrected.
it was corrected. Was it corrected in the final version? Is that the case, Sharon?
I believe this is the final version. This is the one I downloaded. So I'm not sure if it just stays because it was corrected in the comment section of the Word document, or does it get corrected and then that comment gets taken out?
Procedurally, I don't know the answer to that. Beth, can someone help sort me out on that?
Sharon maybe can just illuminate it.
You're muted, Sharon. Sharon, if you were speaking, we couldn't hear you.
No, you unmuted yourself and you just remuted yourself. We can't hear you. You can just hold the space bar down too.
Got it. Can
There
you
you go.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
hear? Okay. I'm sorry about that, Beth. I'm not sure what quote you were referring to from the secretary. So,
Number 7 on page 2.
page.
It just, Sharon, it just needs a quotation mark before the NMSH. And then I have a little, when I sent this to you, I said it was unclear.
If I could interject there, quotation mark, this isn't a book. It's actually just a record of actions taken. And so that really doesn't change the meat of the minutes to have, that quote. I'm just saying it won't matter in the long run, something as simple as that. The only thing that really needs to be recorded in the minutes, and what we're going to do going forward, Sharon, and then eventually also we're going to be hiring somebody to come in and do the minutes, is all it needs to do is say what the action was. And if there was an action, then that has to be verbatim, but everything else is just informational. So the quotation mark, it won't really matter, just FYI.
Okay, well then the quotation close quote should have been taken out if it's not a direct quote from the thing, and then that's fine.
Are you okay with that, Beth?
Yeah, that's fine, as long as the quotation is taken out. If there's nothing verbatim, I thought Sharon was quoting verbatim and there was no beginning quote and close quote. So if it is verbatim, which is maybe important at one point, even though they are minutes, then it should be close quote, but otherwise it's fine.
Okay.
And this is Valerie. So you're just saying in front of the word "we," there's a quotation mark. If that's removed, then there's no other problem with the minutes as drafted. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that correction, as just discussed, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I move to approve the minutes of December 11th.
And I believe Commissioner Elder seconded, but we couldn't hear you. I'll just remind.
I second.
Thank you, Don. I'll just remind everybody that in most cases you're muted or being muted after you turn your mic on, so that the record is clear. And yet you may have to either just depress the space bar momentarily when you speak, or just double check that you're not muted when you talk. So we'll proceed with a roll call vote for that. To approve the minutes from the December 11th meeting. Commissioner Churchill.
Aye.
And we don't have Commissioner Cross yet, I believe. Commissioner Elder.
Aye.
Commissioner Fahey.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner McAteer.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Leary.
Aye.
Commissioner Omeg.
Aye.
Commissioner Tappan.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So the action is approved and the minutes are adopted. Item number 5 is approval of the minutes from the March 12th meeting, which were also sent out by Director Orwell a few days ago. Is there any discussion of those minutes before we move to approve them? I did not have any changes.
I move we approve.
Second,
Right, we'll take a vote on the approval of the minutes for the March 12th meeting. Chris Churchill. I think you're muted.
My space bar wasn't working. Aye.
Thank you. Don Elder,
Aye.
Kimberly Fahey,
Aye.
Carlos Martinez,
Aye.
James McAteer,
Aye.
Beth O'Leary,
aye.
Paula Omeg,
Aye.
Royce Tappan,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So the minutes for the March 12th meeting are adopted. Okay, next on the agenda is our DCA report, and I do not know who's presenting that today.
I imagine I will represent. Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. Just an update. I'm sure Chris will be touching on a number of these things. We're reopening, and I know I think the last time we met, the Department of Cultural Affairs, all of our museums and historic sites are at least back to base operational levels, with the exception of one, being Space History, and I won't steal Chris's incredible work that they've accomplished there on the reopening and the preparation for the bathrooms. Aside from that, it's been a slow process. Right now, our being open means, as we would say, base operations, that we have primarily cashiers and security in our museums. Although as many of us, I trust, maybe everybody has seen the governor's presentation yesterday. We are moving into another phase. We don't know when that phase might materialize, that we will come back to full operation, but we're working closely with DCA staff around the state in anticipation of that. We recognize that there will maybe some bumps along the way, knowing that people have been now home for 13 months. Many of them have done really incredible work. I think if you go back and look in particular at the Space History Museum, the really impressive accomplishments that they've been able to take in terms of public engagement are out there. But we will be transitioning back, and safely and cautiously, and following protocols as necessary. So from the big picture, that's there. We also know that the governor has approved and moved forward with the capital outlay for the Department of Cultural Affairs, of which there was one in the junior bill that came specifically to Space History to really do some incredible things. They're the only DCA entity that received that within that junior bill. I'll let Chris touch base on that too. But we were very pleased that the significant amount of capital outlay that came to DCA, about twice what we have seen in the past as general fund to deal with facilities issues, was approved by the governor, and will be able to really address some significant backlog challenges and facilities that we have. I know that was a priority of the cabinet secretary when she came in to treat all DCA entities equally, and that we elevate them all in tandem. My being a part of that is here. Daniel Zillman, who's DCA Communications, his being there on this call too, really represents that. And it's a fantastic thing to see everything that's happening at the Space History Museum. I know that the image behind Chris right now is not exactly real because it's not that late in the day, or early, depending on which you're looking. But the secretary and I were down there, just a week ago, yesterday, I guess it was, and everything from, and again, not to steal his thunder, but everything in terms of exhibits, from new lights to the landscaping on the outside. It's remarkable to see what has been accomplished in a short amount of time. And I appreciate to all of you and to our foundation partners in helping us move that forward. So in a nutshell, that's where we stand in DCA. I do think, and I'm not sure whether your AG representative will address it, but I know there's some training that may be coming up along the way that we can touch base on that just came out earlier today. So we'll address that as necessary. So with that, stand for questions if you have any for me.
For any questions or comments on Dr. Moore's report. Okay. Thank you very much, Patrick, and appreciate all the attention and the positive attention that the museum is getting, and we'll be sure to find some ways to help you distribute those resources.
Fantastic. Thank you all.
The next item on our agenda is the Space Hall of Fame Foundation comments. I believe those are going to be given by Mr. Powell or Mr. Hudson today.
Okay, thanks, John. This is Cliff Hudson. First, I want to congratulate the museum and the staff for all their hard work. It was really great to see the announcement about the reopening, and we really look forward to supporting the museum. And I want to turn it over to Johnny to talk about some upcoming events. Johnny and the team there has been working hard to plan for our 4th of July event, and I'd like Johnny to share our vision for that. And we think it'll be a great opportunity to re-engage with our members, but also seek new memberships to support the museum as well. So with that, Johnny, do you want to take over?
Thank you, Cliff. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Cliff pointed out, and again, we realize with all the COVID and the framework and all of that, I just have to say, I had more than one drink yesterday after the governor's announcement. It was very, very exciting news on the possibility of the state actually being reopened. The foundation has always had a 4th of July event. It's kind of been somewhat of a low-key event, and we had a vision of actually turning that into a major fundraising event. And we're working with the museum, with DCA right now on, should the framework allow, should the state reopen, we want to be prepared to have such an event by the 4th of July. And what fantastic timing to be able to come back right at that, and then showcase the museum reopening and all of the new features of that. We're just really hoping that maybe there's some good news in the fortune of all of that possibly being able to come together. And what a great date for that to happen on the 4th of July. And so we always have our fireworks show that's a part of it. We definitely plan on continuing that fireworks show regardless of the framework restrictions or whatever, just like we did last year. But we've got really big plans to do this. And the super thing about it, these plans are free to members. We want to have an event that if you're a member, you get into this event. It's going to be a full-blown fair carnival type event with the bands and just an all-day thing. And the fireworks, instead of being the event, they just simply become a part of an all-day event that really showcases a fundraising and all the museum's attributes. So we're hoping framework and all that permitting, we're able to move forward on that. But we're working hard to even get the conceptual approval of that right now. But with that, the groundwork is there, and we're actually making some progress. We could actually, at this point, we see a light into the tunnel of being able to pull off an event like that if we can get approval to move forward in it soon. And of course, with the caveat that if things change, conditions change, we're all going to be a victim of whatever the framework du jour is of the day. So anyway, that's the report from the foundation. All of you need to become members and come to the event. You get in free.
Okay, thank you very much, Johnny. Appreciate that. Any questions or comments for the foundation? I'm going to have a couple more words during my report about the foundation, but I'll save those until my turn to talk. Okay, hearing none, I think Chris, it's over to you for the director's report, and I'll state up front, I very much appreciated the report that you sent out. I love the format. Thank you.
Yeah, and new format. This is something that at the beginning and throughout the pandemic, reports have gotten smaller and smaller at some of the other institutions. And this is as we started doing the Zoom meetings. And it started up in Santa Fe and Albuquerque, and now it's finally trickled down to to Alamogordo down here. And so trying to be cognizant of everybody's time and Zoom fatigue, which is why part of my report will be saying, kind of, it was in the written part. I'm not going to repeat it on here. I'm just going to kind of give an update on things that even are happening since that was put out. So just a few things. You heard Patrick and things that I might not have put in it. So Patrick mentioning that DCA, that was $11 million between the PPRF funds and the capital, statewide capital that DCA got, and in the past, individual institutions had gotten about 14 million. This year, DCA wide, it's 11 million, and then smaller amounts to the institutions. So DCA can kind of control where the monies are going, which really is going to, I think, work out very, very well. So that's great. And then we got, and it was approved by the governor, the $197,600 for outreach opportunities. And we're working right now with DCA on what those will be moving into fiscal year 22. The budget for next year is looking flat, no surprise there. From what we were at this year, that is fine for us here at Space History. We have plenty of funding to execute our mission, and hopefully the only thing that we'll be able to maybe work on next year, and this is kind of bringing up new, is hiring that development director who would then be working with the foundation a lot, the commission a little bit as well, moving forward on the fundraising side and grant writing and things like that. Speaking of grants, we're currently working with some of the relief monies that have been done by the federal government, the various DCA institutions, the museums that have theaters, are working on individual requests for some of those funds. Don't even know what we will get. They figure that out after you put in all of the numbers, and all of the institutions, including us, are putting that in literally right now. And so hopefully next week we'll have some idea of what that will hold. But those monies essentially are coming in, going into DCA and going into the budget to help make up for losses this year in the other state fund, the earned income, the enterprise income side of what we do. We're reopening on next Friday, so a week from today, we will be open. We are on a modified schedule, going to be open Wednesday through Sunday. The biggest reason for that at the moment, the reason that we started doing that was going to be cleaning, and we still are doing some cleaning, but we're not having to do as much now of that surface cleaning with a lot of the restrictions, kind of coming down. That being said, we still have an additional restriction in our situation that is staffing. We are limited on our receptionists, and so we're going to stick with the Wednesday through Sunday schedule until we can get another receptionist hired, and then we'll shift over to probably being open up more days of the week. We'll also have a few weeks operating under our belt with the new rules, new restrictions, etc. But we're very excited. The foundation will start moving in next week. The work will still be going on in the museum. No surprise there. We've got exhibit work that will be going on the Human Spaceflight Gallery, on the inductee gallery, but and then also the contractor work, the restroom work will still be going on for 3 to 4 weeks, especially down on the first floor. We will have the restrooms on the second and fourth floor open up, although we still have work to do in there on the exhibit side. So in other words, they'll be functional. They will be, all of the work that has to be done by the contractors will be complete literally as of next Thursday afternoon. Then we can start working on the exhibit side in the inside of the restrooms. And yes, there are murals in there. There are actually going to be artifacts in corners and locations inside of there as well. Not anywhere near any water and toilets and stuff like that. But those are very large restrooms. So we have space to put in things like a Soyuz toilet, like a Skylab concept toilet, like astronaut diapers, things like that, to help people understand, how do you go to the bathroom in space? So that is the big thing coming up for us as far as work that will be continuing. We are still going. They are still working on some of the electrical work. PNM is wiring that in right now. The lighting work throughout the museum is still going on, and the security work is still going on. And today, literally, they're putting up the new billboard as you come up the hill. There's the welcome, and then there's the thank you for visiting billboard. That is being done today. And I will say it was actually funny when I drove into the museum this morning. And as I was driving up, I was faced with the brand new thank you for visiting the museum as I was driving into the museum. Stopped, pulled over, said, guys, you might want to change that around. So they'd actually put it up on the wrong side. It was kind of funny. In any case, though, so that work is going on, and then simultaneous. Right now, we're not able to open up the theater. We hope we will be able to with these new rules, regulations, and we're going to very closely monitor what is and isn't allowed as far as getting the theater open. But we're also in the middle of the restrooms are being done in the theater, so that prevents us from reopening that building. They're not done yet. Additionally, we just completed, well, not completed, we are in still the process of what we call the great real estate swap of 2021. And that involved moving into the new laboratory spaces and office spaces. The educators have moved into those spaces, although we're still wiring them for phones and for computers, et cetera. The laboratory classroom is essentially ready to go in its basic format. And then what used to be our front classroom now has become our printing area, and we're going to be building an audio visual, a film and recording studio inside of there, because we're going to continue doing so much online work. And then the printing area now expanded allows our graphic designer and printer to get around and work on the materials in a much larger space. And then we're converting the old storage and printing area into the new front classroom and renovating that area. And that actually is going on. Once again, it's in progress literally as we speak right now. So that's real estate swap has mostly been done. You know, it's about 2/3 done at this point in time. The big heavy lifting as far as that goes is the classroom and getting that ready to go. We staff-wise coming back to the museum, we are not authorized for staff to return to the museum yet. In other words, the entire staff. Certain staff are coming back, receptionists, janitorial, maintenance, folks like that for when we're open. And then we have security and janitorial contract support as well. But the whole staff coming back to the museum in some way, shape, or form, we don't know when that's going to happen, but we're preparing for it right now. We are going to be having meetings. We have had meetings with the division directors. DCA has had meetings to discuss it. And now we're meeting with the staff next week to hear and let them air out their concerns, issues, thoughts, ideas. And, you know, we'll see where we come back, you know, whether we come back to everybody on site. Maybe some people will be doing telework and partial we don't know. We don't know what will and won't be allowed and what will and won't be, you know, the right way to go back to the museum. So we're gonna talk about some of that next week, and then share those discussions with DCA as well for a big discussion. And then DCA can work with the governor's office on what that will look like. On the outreach side, we continue with the online outreach. I think one of the fun things and interesting things that you may find is that we normally do a bus tour out to the Trinity site that first Saturday in April and first Saturday in October. We haven't been able to do it now for a year and a half because of the restrictions. It was canceled out at the out on the White Sands Missile Range, but they're looking at doing it again this October. So in planning for that, we went ahead and created with, as we say, you know, there's a lot of caveats in there that say this could be closed if the rules change, regulations change, the Department of Health restrictions, et cetera, if the missile range closes it down, et cetera. But we put out our press release and we created the website for people to come in and be able to reserve spots. Now, normally we fill a bus to a bus and a half at the most. That, you know, and each bus can hold about 55 people, depending on if we have a couple of staff members or a few staff members, you know, between 50 and 55. We actually already have 6 buses full and a waiting list that is 200 people long. So the response has been astounding. And I think it is a signal of pent-up demand for people for experiences. And so I think that's a good thing. And so it works as an outreach for the museum, and it also works as a fundraiser for the foundation. So we're excited about those numbers. And now we're just having to deal with people who are being put on waiting lists and, you know, aren't happy about being on waiting lists, but nothing we can do about that because we've got as many buses as we can at this point in time. Johnny has done a yeoman's job of getting us at least 6 buses. You know, probably if he could get us 9, we might be able to fill all of those. So, but we're up against balloon fiestas and things like that. So, and also staffing issues at that point in time. With that being said, I'll turn it over for questions, comments, thoughts on what I wrote and then what I have put out here verbally.
Thanks, Chris. Are there any comments or questions for Chris's report?
Great job as always, Chris.
Chris
Sorry,
Churchill.
Don. Oh, thank you. Great report, Chris. Really liked the format too. I really was able to parse it really quickly and get all the good information, and awesome work. And I just wanted to know if you had something, like, I'm really kind of a visual learner. If I can see sort of something that sort of visually lays things out in time. And if you had this available, I would love to look at it. If you don't have it available, that's fine. But something like a Gantt chart that shows, like, you know, what the timeline of the various projects, because there's so many projects, you have so many balls in the air, and each of them have timelines, and something where a guy like me could just look at it on 1 page or 2 pages and sort of get that sort of integrated view. Is there anything that exists like that?
Nothing that exists, you know. We just keep track of it, you know, with the contractors, because they're all the different, you know, contractors. We've just kept track of it, myself and Billy Jones, the deputy online, and Robert Moncada, you know, just tracking them individually and then working with it. But we did not create a gigantic, you know, Excel spreadsheet, Gantt chart, anything like that. But we could very easily. We could put that all down on paper. We haven't found it necessary for us, but now that I think about it, if you're hearing this every 3 months, you know, it probably would help. You know, I mean, let's put it this way: we've not been in this situation before. This is the first time that we've ever had this much work going on at one time at the museum. Yes, we've had individual projects, you know, and sometimes there's a little overlap, but this is the first time we've had almost 8, you know, projects going on all at one time, you know, coming into it fresh like you all are. Yeah, you know, so probably we could put that together very quickly. The sad thing is, probably by the time I get it, you know, put together, or by the time of the next meeting, we'll be past almost all of the work except for 1 or 2 things. So,
well, it's been a Herculean effort, and thank you. And, you know, I know it's extra work and nobody wants extra work, but even if a lot of the things are done, you know, it just helps the new people on the commission like myself get that picture of, you know, where we landed in the process and then how that process is wrapped up. Even if we're toward the end of it, it just really, I think for me, it would really help me understand where I am in the history of this, you know, tremendous effort that's been going on.
yeah, and I think another thing that I probably, you know, and if the commissioners would like it, I can send it out to them. It's also interesting to see the listing of all of the projects that we have completed over the last 8 years, since we started really getting funding again, which began almost 9 years ago now, with the first budget, you know, after I got here. We have completed millions and millions and millions, you know, over $6 million worth of work up at the museum, most of it invisible to the public. And so, you know, I can get that list. That list I keep track of and I update every about 3 to 4 months. And so that list I can send out to everybody. And it's just an informational thing. You know, it's not stuff that's going on right now. It's just a history of what has been done and what we've been able to accomplish here in quote unquote relatively short order, is the first part of that. And I've said it before, that kind of 15-year plan of trying to get the museum back into shape.
I think it would be a good idea to share that with the other commissioners. I did get a chance to take a look at that list a week or a couple of weeks or a month ago, and it is informative. It really does put in scope how much work has been going on to deal with the infrastructural issues over the past several years.
Yeah, I will send that out.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. And Beth, do you have some questions?
Yeah, I have a question for Chris. On your director's report, on the programming and outreach and exhibits, it talks about your accessioning, and it says Shineberry, Farrington, Toval. The catalog record attached, I didn't see it attached. Is there a lot of stuff coming into the museum being accessioned?
Not right now. Those items was mostly magazines and some paperback books from those individuals, from Charlie Farrant and Mike Shineberry and things. And everybody else can confirm for me. Did I accidentally not attach the accession record?
That is correct.
I'll send it out after the meeting, just to double check, just so everybody's got that, so that you can see the listing. It's a pretty simple listing, and they're just Excel spreadsheet files. Secondly, as far as the accessions, we really haven't brought in anything quote unquote big in the last 3 to 6 months. We just acquired at auction, and the foundation helps us out with this. 2 items in the most recent auction. One was one of Al Warden's books, and it was his original copy of Jules Verne, the Voyage from the Earth to the Moon, and we will be using that in our science fiction, science fact and exhibit. And then we also got an Apollo 17 topographical map, and those were gained from the RR. Tough to say, that auction that just occurred earlier this week. We wanted to get some more items, including a shuttle sleeping bag and also a flight jacket from Edgar Mitchell that were in the auction. But sadly, I got called away to a meeting, and so I had to put in guesses on the high bids for those items, and I only guessed right on one of the 3 that were the major items that we wanted. So we got outbid on the other 2. So c'est la vie. But that is something that we've been able to acquire. And then we always keep our eye open on not only donations and auctions, and we're hoping here in the near future, and we've gotten authorization from the secretary and the secretary's office to move forward. And the reason that I need their authorization there, the governor's, is for travel out of state, is another donation that would be coming from California, from a private donor out there who has a very large private collection that we have already gotten a couple of $1 million worth of objects from.
The reason I asked that too is I'm wondering if you have a relationship with the Rio Grande archives at Nmsu to share some of the information that they have. Certainly it can be linked. I don't think there's a problem there, but there is a space history archive there. And one of the things there is a videotape, audio videotape of Frank Borman giving an interview to me and several students about his mission. And it's transcribed. So it's not an object or an artifact, but it would provide background. So I was thinking
that might be very useful. And if you could send me the links to it, I'll get that to Sue, our curator, and have her get in touch with the archive over there.
Yeah, it's Dennis Daly over at the archive. Yeah, and again, it's a facility to facility agreement or memorandum of understanding. And it always helps scholars share stuff, I think. I have one other question about the attendance and events, and you've gone ahead and looked at the online resources for the last 3 months, January, February, and March. And I'm wondering, number one, what do these include? How are they counted? Is it hits on your website? And then is there a way to look at what is most popularly accessed? So when you look at what you have, can you look at what people are looking at most frequently?
The answer is yes. And we have actually, that is just one piece of a very big spreadsheet. Once again, I was told to make sure that the report going out to everybody was small, and all of a sudden it's like, I don't want to start expanding it. So, but yeah, we keep track of a very large spreadsheet of actually 3 things. And that has to do with online outreach and what is getting hit and how we're getting the scenes, videos that get seen on YouTube, as well as Facebook, posts being shared, et cetera, This is just engagement numbers, and Daniel, step in if I'm misspeaking on anything, because DCA has been working very closely with every division and DCA wide to really create metrics for measuring and tracking the online engagement, because that's what we've been doing for the last year. And now we're going to be moving forward, tracking both online engagement, which is why we are going to be continuing doing that and why we're building a recording studio. And then also the in-person engagement that we're either doing on-site or off-site, which has traditionally been what we tracked. But now we've added the online component to it, and Daniel and his team had to create ways for that all to be tracked. Some of it's done at DCA level, some of it's done at our level.
Well, I don't know about the other commissioners, but I'd like to see the top 10. What are people accessing the most, and who are they? Perhaps is it teachers? Is it the general public? It doesn't have to be the 7,000 cells, but just kind of giving us an idea, because I think going into the future, because the museum is opening up, you can still talk about attendance, but I think online is the way it's going to be in the future. And I'd like to see what people are interested in. And that's one metric, you can share with us, not to the nth degree, but again, maybe the, top 10.
Well, I have I think that's a good comment, Beth. And I think this topic is going to come up again in a few minutes when I talk about the standing committees, because I think it segues very nicely into one of the subjects I wanted to bring up, which is how we handle and track relationships as well as outreach. And so if you don't mind, I'm going to bring this topic up again in about 10 minutes because that's a good question. Are there any other questions or comments from Chris's report? Okay, hearing none, I'll also just acknowledge that Commissioner Cross has joined us, and we'll move on to the next item, number 9, which is my report. And I'll try to be brief here, as I think item number 10 is going to take a little bit more time. So first of all, I wanted to thank those of you who gave me some feedback on that letter of introduction I had sent to the commissioners. I appreciate your comments, and just encourage any of you, if you want to contact me directly, please feel free to do so. And if you don't know what I'm talking about and didn't get a copy of that, please let me know somehow, because you should have gotten that. I took advantage of an opportunity to spend half a day at the museum about a month ago with Chris and Patrick Moore. And I got a chance to meet with them for a good portion of the day, toured the museum, which is really a construction site at the time. I can definitely tell you that an enormous amount of work has gone on there. And I think it reflects this inflection point that we are going through, which is a sustained period over the last several years, if not 5 or more, of dealing with the necessities of infrastructure and fixing a lot of problems that had to be fixed. And we're coming out of that with what appears to be a very healthy physical plant, infrastructure, building, and not as much space as I think we would all like, but the things that are there are working now, and they're not in danger of falling apart or hurting somebody or running afoul of regulations. And I really think that there's a lot of credit has got to be given to the staff and to Director Orwell for all the work that's been done pushing that forward. The inflection point I'm speaking of is transitioning now to perhaps another 5 years where the focus is going to change from, fixing the things that needed to be fixed to enhancing the museum, focusing on exhibits and outreach and education and all the fun stuff that, museums like to do, and all the things I think that the folks here on this commission are passionate about being engaged with. And so that is, I think, a really good news story. And I think that the museum is putting itself in an excellent position to get ready for these next 5 years. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about committee work in the next section, but I really appreciated the opportunity to do that. I would encourage all of you on the commission, as you have time, please work with Chris, and if you can, schedule yourself some time at the museum and get to know people and see what's going on and ask some questions and just get a feel for stuff. I was very impressed with what I saw. I got a chance to not only tour everything behind the scenes, some of the other buildings, the research areas, the educational areas, the offices, the theater, but I spent some time down at the support building, which is where a lot of artifacts which are not displayed or ready to display are kept. There's some really cool stuff there. One I was looking at periodically, and I kept bringing up to Chris and Patrick, is a Redstone rockets in relatively okay shape out there. I'm very excited about that. There are other rockets out there. There's other big stuff and small stuff. It really is a nice collection, and some stuff I think that the public would be very excited to learn more about. So there's a lot of opportunity in the next several years to think about. I'll talk in a few minutes when we talk about standing committees. There may be a potential need for some other committees to help organize some things as we go forward. I'll speak about those in a few minutes. I'm also I'd like to plan another visit sometime in the next 3 to 6 weeks before the next meeting. And I will get with you, Chris, on this. I want one to continue some of the discussions we've had, but I also want to make sure that I would like to spend some time specifically with the foundation. I'd like to speak to the folks in the foundation, and again, just from the point of view of building some relationships and understanding roles and responsibilities and potentials and how things fit together. So if you can help me coordinate that, I would very much be appreciative of that, and I'll work around your schedules to do that.
If I could interrupt, I think the easiest way to do that is at one or more of the foundation meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're getting together to hear what they're going over, to meet all the people there, and they meet every other month. Sometimes it coincides with on some months it coincides with this, but they meet earlier in the month than the governor's commission. Okay, well then I'll extend a request to Johnny Powell or Cliff Hudson to, please feel free to invite me to these meetings. If you don't think I'll be in the way, I'd really love to see how you operate and what's on your mind.
That will be great. We would welcome that. We'll make sure that you're on our invitation list, and we welcome that opportunity to engage.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sure I'll have lots of questions for you.
Hopefully we'll have answers.
If there are no other questions for me, then I'll go on to the next item, number 10. Okay, this one may take a little bit of time because there's actually quite a few things to go through. This is a discussion of standing committees and selecting committee chairs. There's several sub items we need to go through. So the first is we got to clean up a few things administratively that I was remiss in pushing forward last time around. Being new, I had to read a lot to get caught up. We established 3 committees, the Long Range Strategic Planning Committee, which I think is actually more formally called the Mission and Long-Term Planning Committee, according to our standing rules. I was just talking about it wrong, but that's a committee that's actually pretty well staffed and established. You're going to hear from them in a few minutes. I think it's full. Any more folks would constitute an inappropriate quorum. So that committee is established. I want to talk about the rules for that in just a second. While I'm talking here, I lost track of my notes, so give me just 1 minute here. we have on that committee, as you recall, Commissioners O'Leary, Churchill, Omig, Fahey, and Martinez is an alternate. Elder, O'Leary, Churchill, Omig, and Fahey, 5 members on that commission with an alternate of Commissioner Martinez. And as I understand it, they have put forward Dr. Churchill as the chair of that committee. I had not pressed forward with asking for nominations for committee chairs, but we do need them according to standing rule number 3. They do need to be approved by the commission according to that standing rule. And so unless there is a reason to not do that, I'd like to ask that committee, whose members are here, whether that is they want to put forward Chris as their chair, and if we can vote on that, we will do that.
I would like to nominate Chris as our chair.
I'd like to second it, and we've already unanimously voted for him, but I understand that we need to do this as an entire committee, so the subcommittee is legal.
We do. So
I second that, Paulo here.
Are there any other comments? Chris, are you willing to serve as chair of this committee?
Well, if you saw the way they bent my arm, no, I'm just joking. I would be very happy to. Yes.
All right. Unless there are any objections, I would like to call for a vote to confirm Chris Churchill as chair of the Mission and Long Range Planning Committee. That is a motion for a vote, by the way.
Seconded.
All right, we'll proceed with a roll call vote to confirm Chris Churchill as chair of that committee. And I think I suppose you have a vote, but I'm going to ask you last, Chris. We'll go otherwise alphabetically. Commissioner Cross.
Aye.
Commissioner Elder.
Aye.
Commissioner Fahey.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner McAteer.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Leary.
Aye.
Commissioner Omeg.
Aye.
Commissioner Tappan.
Aye.
I vote aye. And Chris, make it unanimous?
I'll make it unanimous. Aye.
Very well. The motion passes, and Dr. Churchill is now the chair of the committee, and I'll refer you to standing rule number 8, which is the rule that governs mission long-term planning. With that, I have a question, I think, for Assistant Attorney General Valerie Joe. The copy of standing rule number 8 and in fact standing rule number 9 that I have both say that they're draft and not approved. So have I got the wrong copy, or are those rules actually not approved?
I think we would have to check the minutes. Is there a date? Oh, this says February 12th of 2010. So perhaps Mr. Orwell could assist us. Thank you.
Yeah, that is the date on the paper that I have for both rules. I just note that on the top of both of them, they both are listed as draft until approved by the commission. And I don't know if that is just an oversight. They were approved or if they weren't approved. And if I could just ask if someone would check into that and let me know, so we can either put it on the agenda for approval or just fix the language in their standing rule, please. Okay.
We'll go back and take a look. I'm not sure. I know that. I don't remember.
Okay. I just thought that we would ask for that to be clarified for the next time around in case we have to vote on it. Let's see. I have a couple other items. Okay, so we also had established a legislative support committee under rule number 5 and a development committee under rule number 7. The Legislative Support Committee has one member, and so far that is Commissioner Tappan. And so the session, I believe, is ended, and so the work is probably not going to pick up for a while, but with a committee of one, which is allowed under the rule, under Rule 3, you might be kind of lonely doing that, Bryce, but I'd like to ask if there are other folks who are interested in serving on the Legislative Support Committee.
I had put my name forward by that in that 2 meetings ago. I think I did that, or maybe I did it by email. But
then
if I didn't do it, or if it's been slipped, I can I volunteer myself again.
Okay, very, very well. I appreciate that, James. Yeah, I didn't have your name associated with that, so that's good. The only thing I can say about that right now is there's time if you guys want to talk over who wants to be chair of that committee, and we can handle that next week. There's not, our next meeting, there's not actually a sense of urgency, I think, to do that. Take a look at the at rule number 5 that specifies the responsibilities and tasks of that committee, and come back with any questions. And then finally, we have a development committee with Commissioners Elder, Martinez, and Cross, who volunteered for the development committee. Again, that's handled under standing rule number 7. If you haven't read that recently, I don't need to go through the provisions of that here. Again, I would also say if that committee has not had a chance to get together and meet yet, I would be happy to have any discussion right now. If you've had any discussions about that and have decided or think that somebody would like to chair that committee. If not, I don't have a problem with tabling that until next time we get together.
John, we have not met as a committee yet.
Okay, thank you, Don. Well, I will let you get together and have some discussions amongst yourself first, and then if you want to come forward with someone that you recommend for nomination to chair that committee, then we can vote on that next time.
Very good.
So that brings me to one of the other items I wanted to talk about, which is having committee meetings. And one of the things that you'll see in the rules of the committee meetings is the importance of coordinating appropriately with the museum, with the director, and with DCA. So it actually is fairly important when the committees meet that prior to holding those meetings that Chris or Patrick, or someone from their staff, has an opportunity to either attend the meeting and provide input or background to the committee, and you coordinate those activities with them. I think that's going to give all of the committees a better holistic picture of what the history is, what the needs are, and who the stakeholders are. The committee is responsible to bring forward the decision packages to the commission. So, of course, the committee will bring forward what it thinks is best. But it's really important that the committee has a full picture and is informed about who all the stakeholders are. And then when the commission makes those decisions, those are in most cases tantamount to recommendations to the secretary, who can decide to adopt those commission decisions as policy. So from the point of view of how the process works, it's important that we engage properly with those stakeholders. And I personally don't know who they all are, so I've got my own ideas, but I'm sure I don't have a complete picture there. Okay, any questions so far? I got 1 or 2 more items.
John, I have a question about the coordinating these subcommittee meetings. I think for continuity's sake, it would be nice to have the same person. Like, we informed Patrick Moore that we're having a subcommittee meeting. And then we inform Chris, and whoever Chris wants to designate, or whoever Patrick wants to designate. It's been very helpful in our subcommittee to have Don Elder, which we call the Elder because he has the institutional memory and has been really helpful to us to talk about the last 10 years. But yeah, I mean, Chris could speak better than I can, but we've had, is it 2 or 3 meetings together, and we're very productive. So yeah, I would like to, continue that tradition if we could, and inform these other 2 groups, both the museum and DCA, if that's what we're supposed to do. But have it continue.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to step on any productivity of a committee that's working well. I just need to remind the members of the committees that according to the standing rules, there is a requirement that the committees do need to coordinate their activities with the museum director. So there needs to be a flow of information there, and to me the benefit of that flow of information is to make sure that we're engaging with all the right stakeholders when it comes to bringing forward, especially any kind of a decision package that's controversial. And so it's a matter of getting perspective and making sure that the decisions that are being brought forward to the full commission are informed properly. So we really don't have a choice in the matter of involving the museum director. But I think it's appropriate that both DCA and the museum director are allowed to participate and share perspective and information with the committee.
Yeah, and on subcommittees I've sat on, in person, like the CPRC, the subcommittees met before the full commission. Right. So those people were there. It wasn't a museum, but the SHPO or his designee, and people that we could ask questions of during the subcommittee meeting that could provide us with some more information that we needed to go forward.
Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying, Beth. I think that there's a fairly large amount of leeway in the standing rules which govern those committees. In this case, though, the standing rules do specify in them certain folks that do need to be involved in the exchange of information and the coordination of that information. So, and I don't know how the other committee that you referred to was governed by its set of standing rules. I really only starting to appreciate these. So anyway, I don't see there's any problem with anything that's been done. I just wanted to make sure that there's the proper flow of information to gather all of the inputs from the various stakeholders. I'm still learning how this all works myself, so I appreciate everybody's tolerance while I sort this out.
Chairman Haas, if I could just interject for a moment.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea with all these committees that they, again, communicate with Chris and myself as his executive secretary to inform us as to what's being done. I've always had a great relationship with the in the past commission, and I look forward to a great relationship with all of you. So I think communication is really good. Let's keep that up. Whatever you're doing, let's just communicate.
Yep. Yeah, we're still figuring out how to do this with largely a new commission.
Well, John.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Is that Dr. Elder?
I'll defer to Patrick.
Yes. Patrick?
Thank you, Don. I appreciate this. I think this is a great conversation and one we're navigating through a number of boards and commissions across the Department of Cultural Affairs. And thank you, Beth. You come with a lot of experience and understanding. CPRC is a little different than here. Ultimately, the cabinet secretary is the decision maker, and it's provided advisory. And certainly she works hand in hand with Chris and myself and leading things forward. So I think by no means, thank you, Chairman Haas, to say, keep going forward the way that you're going forward and enthusiastically supporting your guidance in the midst of this. but making sure that we have the staff. Chris in particular is the point person. You can communicate through me, but I'm going to always communicate back through Chris because we're on the phone texting multiple times a day. So it's a very close relationship, which is ideal to have that flow of information. And often it's going to be, as we start to navigate, we would hate to spend time going down one path only to say, well, actually, we need to move it back toward this direction. So just as I say, and thank you, Sharon, keeping everybody in line at the same time, the participation of everybody is great, and having somebody, a representative, whether it's Chris or Billy or his designate, or if he needs me to be there in absence, if there's a time, I'm happy to do that and support. But certainly we can keep things going forward through that and the shared collaboration. And with that, too, I know that we've looked at this from some other commissions and boards that are governor appointed, having if there may be an opportunity to have a governor representative, the cabinet secretary, myself meet with the board and kind of give some conversation of a dialogue about where we're going, how we get to where we're going, and what some of those protocols might look like. And that's been helpful elsewhere, and we're certainly happy to provide that now. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
So John,
Go ahead, Don. Don, I want to hear what you have to say before I chime in.
Let me recognize Commissioner Elder.
well, this is for Sharon primarily. Sharon, since I didn't get my usual bottle of Coke at a commission meeting, could I ask you for a favor?
Absolutely, Don.
Could you please give me Carlos and Rhonda's emails, and I will contact them. I'll coordinate with you and Chris, and we'll set up the meeting of our committee.
Absolutely, will do.
But I look forward to a Coke in July.
Can't wait.
Thank you, Don. Chris Churchill.
Yeah, thanks, John. So I'm not sure if I'm hearing that you actually want somebody like Chris or Sharon or Patrick to attend the committee meetings, or whether you just wanted the information flow as to say, we're going to meet at this date, we have an agenda of such and such, and so, maybe a report of some short minutes. I'm not sure what is quite being asked here.
Okay.
And I asked because I was worried that if we have extra attendees, we form a quorum.
Okay, let me address that. So number one, you only have to worry about a quorum when there are more than 5 commissioners present. You can have people who are not on the commission present at the meeting because they're non-voting members. So that would not constitute a quorum under my interpretation of the rules. And Valerie, she's nodding her head, that's correct. So that is not a concern. It's you just can't have a quorum of voting commissioners present at any of these functions. And since there are 11 commissioners, that's 5 or fewer you're allowed to have. Number 2, so what am I specifically asking? What I'm specifically asking is because of the requirement in the standing rules that the activities are done in coordination with the museum director, and in the case of some committees, like for example, the education committee, which we don't have yet, specifically with the foundation, there are some requirements that those activities are coordinated with them. To me, what that means in practicality is that those entities with which the coordination must occur must be given the opportunity to attend those meetings or submit materials that should occur for discussion or request information from the committee. If, for example, so I would say in that case, that means in the case of the Mission and Long Range Planning Committee, Director Orwell has to have the opportunity to make the decision himself if he wants to attend that meeting or send somebody, or if he can't do that or thinks it's okay that you meet, otherwise. But that decision really needs to be up to him. So they need the opportunity to be able to participate. If they want to, then you have to try to work around that schedule.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, I know it creates a little bit of an extra burden, but Chris Orwell?
Yeah, maybe just as a helpful clarification, so a lot of this has to do, I mean, we've got a large number of new commissioners, and understanding, who's doing what between DCA and the museum and the operational side and the commission, and where it does its advisory role and sometimes its decision-making role, because there's strange lanes to all of it that are built into the statutes. And in situations like this, and partially, I think that's what Patrick was actually offering, was that the governor's office, DCA, the commission, and the museum, get together, and they do a training session, and they've done this for other commissions that have kind of had a lot of new folks come on board to help deal exactly with some of the questions you're having there, Chris. Because when you take a look at long range strategic planning committee, if you're having a meeting, if somebody from the museum is there, we can talk about, hey, what we have done in the past, why it was done this way, how DCA, because DCA creates the strategic plan, then we work on one. And like in the last time we did it, the museum set it up where we had a, almost 9 to 12 month plan set up, and how we did all the stakeholder analysis and everything, gathered that, and then the folks who were on the long range strategic planning committee at that time, when we did that essentially 5 years ago, they actually kind of sat in and we discussed together what, they advised and said, hey, maybe shift that left, right, but we were kind of proposing everything. And then they stepped in and did exactly what they're supposed to do, advising it, and then made the recommendation to the main board after we'd all talked together, kind of thing. So I think it's just figuring out how that works for each area, because every area is very different. Development is very different in the way things operate between the foundation and the state. And then the commission traditionally hasn't done a whole lot, but it can, and then if you talk about education, you've got the DCA and the museum working together on, executing an operations plan. And then the foundation is really just kind of coming in saying, hey, we think it might be good to do these things. And then that gets added into the mix for the museum and DCA to take a look at. Everyone's a little different, so.
Any more questions on that subtopic before I go on to two or three more? Okay, thanks for the question, Chris. Yet another?
Yeah, I was just going to add, connect with Chris Orwell's statement there, and I might be getting a little bit ahead of this, but John, you and I briefly talked about, I think that this committee really wants to welcome individuals to come to meetings that we want to, so that the committee can do a lot of fact finding and a lot of background and understand, because there are new commissioners on the committee. So this kind of thing, I think, is something we wanted to integrate into our committee over the next several months, is to be on a fact finding mission at some level to understand all the goals and things like that.
Yeah.
And what's been done.
I think that actually segues nicely into one other comment that I wanted to make. And I think it, again, falls along the lines of expectations. So I'll just give you my perspective on bringing decisions before the commission from the committees. One thing that worries me more than anything else is when a big decision is made and is brought before a committee, commission, or board, or whoever is making that, with sort of unanimous consent that everything should be done this way. That always is a red flag to me. I really like it when there's some argument about two different ways to do something. So with that in mind, and that's just a philosophical thing I've learned over the years, I want to urge the committees, when they put together decision packages to bring to the full commission for a vote, to me, it's important that we hear any alternative opinion or a dissenting opinion. And I know absolutely that the commissioners here are fully capable of making a decision that is controversial or difficult. That's why we're here. But what I'd really rather hear is, what are the choices, and who are the stakeholders which are being positively and negatively affected given the choices that we have to make. Sometimes this is really easy because it's just a simple good decision. But I know that we're going to be faced with some, possibly when we talk about, adopting any major changes in the long range or strategic plan, or talk about big acquisitions. There probably will be 2 or 3 different opinions, and we're going to have to consider those and choose between them. And I just want to make sure that we're thinking about that. I'm more interested in hearing all sides of the story and having to make a tougher decision than browbeating people into acquiescence before we make a decision. So that's a philosophical thing that I think makes for healthier decisions. So sometimes
this is a hard commission to browbeat. Let me just make that comment. And
I know there are some strong personalities here, and you don't know how much I appreciate that. The last comment I think I'll make on the commissions, well, actually I have 2 more. You'll note that there are existing provisions under the standing rules for an education committee, understanding rule 9, and a museum review committee, understanding rule number 4. At this point, there hasn't been a call to activate any of those committees. However, that doesn't mean there can't be. I just want commissioners aware of that. There has been some discussion on whether as we move forward into kind of the next phase of taking a functional physical museum and turning it into a vibrant museum that is fulfilling its mission, whether or not there might be a need for some other kinds of committees. One that's been talked about is a collections committee that might have input into acquisitions or things that or ways of helping out with displays. Another is some of the work that we do with outreach, and the outreach is actually one I wanted to just spend a couple minutes talking about. Looking at Director Orwell's report and spending some time talking to Chris and some of the others on the commission, there is a lot of work going on in outreach and engagement with different organizations and stakeholders. Some really good stuff's going on. There are so many relationships that I can't keep track of them all. And I'm wondering if there might be an opportunity for a committee that would be able to keep track of, say, areas of outreach. There are a lot of opportunities. There are several new opportunities, especially with some of the new folks on the commission. Reading some of the stuff you sent to me, some of the stuff you put in your brief bios, some of the things you said, many of you are engaged with stakeholder organizations on the side that have similar agendas and similar missions. That might be an excellent way to leverage some of these partnerships. So the kinds of activities I'm thinking about are, not just the establishment, but the maintaining of relationships with stakeholders, and also tracking how we're engaging with them. Some just off that that are new to this, with Commissioner Omeg being chair of the New Mexico Space Grant Consortium. In the director's report, we heard about the spaceport. They put on some festivals we may want to be engaged with. There's stuff going on with NASA, WSMR. There are other societies and organizations with aligned goals that many of you are already part of. I think organizing, establishing, and maintaining all those relationships is a tough job. and to have all of that fall on the executive director, we may be able to be helpful in this fashion. So I'm not calling for the establishment of that committee. I'm bringing it up as a point of discussion, and as you have ideas on how you might want to do that, there are provisions to do so. Getting just back to the education one, so I'm talking about outreach. Outreach and education are often intimately linked. I am not a subject matter expert in either field. Many of you are, and some of you have expressed specific passions for reaching out to specific communities, and I want to make sure that there's the opportunity there to do that. So again, these are some of the activities that may be able to fit into some of that work and give some of you the opportunity to engage in that way and help the mission of the museum. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. We can create new committees as necessary. There's a process under Rule 3 to do that. And that would be up to us to do that should we choose to do so. Okay, I think.
John, could I briefly say something about the Education Committee?
Yes, of course, Don.
There was an Education Committee, but we honestly felt as a commission that when Chris became the director, when Dave got involved in education, we honestly felt they were doing beyond our expectations when it came to education. And so we didn't really feel that there was need for an education committee to meet to advise them, because they really seem to be handling things much better than had been handled in the past.
No, I appreciate that comment, Don, and I certainly don't bring it up because I think that there is any, I don't perceive that there is any need to offer any particular advice or help. What I see is just a lot going on.
Yes.
And I also see at the same time many of the commissioners who are new, who have something to offer and some particular passions for things, and I think that it's that opportunity that I was trying to leverage in my bringing that up. So
absolutely, and I totally agree with you.
Okay, with the exception of just yes, please.
So yeah, I just wanted to say, being a new commissioner, I do appreciate that sort of invitation, because I wasn't sure as far as, what we're allowed to do, not do, but I do appreciate the ability to at least say, hey, here's an organization that might like to come to your museum or want to learn or do your virtual showing. So I think it's great that if there's something that we know of, that we have the opportunity to just share it with our fellow commissioners and with Chris as well. So thank you for stating that.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, Kimberly. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I specifically brought it up because I just looking at the backgrounds and the outside organizations you all are part of. I mean, it's really impressive how wide-reaching the people on this commission have been in the public service that you do, and I'd like to make sure that we're acknowledging that, and if we can use those connections for the betterment of the mission of the museum, then we're succeeding. And I know Chris is doing an enormous amount of work. If we can use our connections and passions to help that, then we're doing our job. Chris.
And let me just echo that, and it is going to sound a bit like an echo, because that's exactly what DCA and the museum absolutely love, is when we have commissioners who do have the connections and B, the experience and knowledge, and that they can then bring that to the museum and to DCA to make recommendations, like what Beth O'Leary was doing here earlier, talking about the archive there at Nmsu and making that connection really quickly. Instantly we can see, boom, that's a great way to make a connection. And so many of you have these connections both in industry and education, in the space flight arena, et cetera. And that's where we can really use that. So if there are ideas out there, all I can say is please send them whenever you have them. you know, text, email, smoke signal, whatever. Shoot them in, you know, so that we can start a discussion, because we love that sort of stuff. And usually, you know, it jumps into the hopper and we figure out whether or not it's something we can pursue. Because once again, being staff limited, sometimes we're like, yeah, that's a great idea, but, you know, but we love getting all of the connections and ideas. So please never hesitate to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, those comments, Chris. I'll just add one more of my own. New Mexico, as you all know, is very full of some very underserved communities. And part of our mission, I see it, is to make sure that we're reaching out appropriately to those. It's not just people with money, and it's not just people that we think are going to, benefit what we're trying to do. We have an obligation to make sure that we're far-reaching in what we do. So that's my point of view, and I think many of you agree with that. So let's make sure we're not missing those opportunities where we can make a difference. I think I've said all I needed to say personally about committees. I said a lot. If there are any questions on anything I said, or you're not quite sure what I meant, then I've been confusing, and I would be more than happy to answer those. I think you all have my contact information, so feel free to reach out at any time. I really don't mind that, and I will find someone to get you some answers if I can't do it.
Chair John, I have a quick comment out of your comments here.
Yes, Commissioner Omeg.
It's interesting you mentioned the diversity of the commissioners and different organizations represented, and that reminds me of course, the New Mexico Space Hand Consortium, a state office program, as part of a NASA program, Office of STEM Education, of STEM engagement. So NASA Space Hand operates with affiliates. So here in New Mexico, we have several affiliates, institutions, informal education institutions as well. So there is an opportunity for the New Mexico Museum of Space History to become an official affiliate of the New Mexico Space Hand Consortium. So I forward some materials for Chris to review, and Sharon, and then for any question they may have to pass them over to me. But it's a very simple format. It's just a sort of a MOA, and it formally becomes an affiliate of the New Mexico Space Hand Consortium, with all the benefits and fanfare that that brings along. So.
Well, thank you very much. That's a very good reminder. I appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other comments on this topic before we go on to item number 11 on our agenda? Okay. The next one is the Museum Mission Long-Term Planning Committee report. And to kick that off, I will turn that over to Commissioner Churchill, chair of the committee.
Thank you, John. Well, thank you all for your vote of confidence to have me chair this committee. And as John mentioned earlier, on this committee, the mission and long-term planning is Don Elder and Beth O'Leary and Kimberly Fahey and Paulo Omi, and we have the alternate Mr. Martinez. And so we've met a few times, but we had one meeting recently in which we decided to be bold and consider forwarding a decision package to the commission. I love that language. It's not really a decision package at the time.
NASA language, sorry.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, it's NASA language.
It's NASA language. I love it. I love it. I love NASA language. So at this stage, the committee is just learning how to work together and get to know each other. And I think we found that we work together wonderfully. We have been collaborating, and it's working out quite well. And I think the first thing that we decided to tackle was to revisit the mission statement, vision, and core value statement that are present in the strategic plan of 2017. And the other thing was that we know that we're charged with looking at the strategic priorities, of which there's 4 main goals. And within each goal, there are a series of objectives. So we haven't really started to parse those yet. We're just getting reacquainted with them. And we would like to, I think, learn more from the people that have memory and knowledge about what's going on, and have them visit with the committee and share with us what those objectives have meant in the past, what portions of those objectives have been accomplished or in the process of being accomplished, and just understand and do a lot of data gathering so that the committee can become educated and have some, I'd like to say, wisdom bestowed upon it so that it can then approach its objectives in the coming time. Having said that, today we are interested, if the commission would be interested in sharing with you an update on our thoughts on the mission statement, the vision statement, and the core values. I believe that Chris Orwell had sent that around to everybody. And I guess I'd like to first wonder if everybody had received that information and had an opportunity to perhaps think about that information.
I have seen that, and I believe I got it in a distribution from Director Orwell.
So if people are open to it, just for a moment here, I could share my screen and show you what we have. And I believe I have the capability to do that. So I think you can all see this, and I hope it's large enough that everybody can read it.
Can see it.
Okay. So we looked at the previous statements, and I've written those here in the black italics. And the blue boldface would be sort of a draft of where we believe that they become more modernized, if you will. What we mean by that is words such as mankind might be modified to humankind. And then the idea of the cultural inclusivity being emphasized a little bit more broadly in terms of culture and ways of life. So having said that, I think you can all read it. I don't know that I necessarily am asking for any action right now, because I don't believe that is on the agenda for the meeting, that this is an action item for a vote. But I think we'd like to at least get this on the next meetings up for a vote and put that on the agenda. And at this point in time, I would like to seek on behalf of the committee, any comments that people might have as to whether they think there are some wording that they think might be an improvement. Don, I see you've unmuted yourself. Did you want to contribute?
I just wanted to second what you said, Chris, that we feel that the language was outdated, and we feel that this is much more representative of where we are in 2021.
Exactly. Well said. Well said. So I'll just read them for everybody, and then we can go from there. So we tried to capture the essence of everything that was already in there. We weren't trying to change anything, but so for the mission, we wrote to inspire and educate the public about space to preserve and promote the historical significance of space exploration, to honor its pioneers and engage in its future. The only thing we feel is an addition in this statement is the engage in its future, because we wanted to present the idea that the Space Museum is active and is also serving as a bridge, not just to look through the eyeglasses at the past, but to help people see through the eyeglasses to the future as well. Because we have a very active state actually still. So for the vision, we wrote to illuminate, excuse me, to illuminate the diverse history and cultural impact of humankind's activities beyond Earth, and to celebrate New Mexico's role in humanity's exploration of the ultimate frontier. And so you can see this is a broad blanket statement about cultural impact, changing it to humankind's, acknowledging and celebrating or to bringing light to the diverse history as well. And then moving on from frontiers of air and space and just really throwing the ball down the field to the broader vision of the ultimate frontier. We thought that's more exciting. And then for core values, we wrote the museum values, respects, and recognizes diverse perspectives of the scientific and cultural knowledge of space, and seeks to be inclusive to all individuals. And we spent some time discussing the word integrity and honesty, and felt that these words implied those strongly enough that we didn't need to necessarily carry them through. I'd like to say the committee, all of us worked together. We worked on this on Google document, and we're able to each discuss it over Zoom, type things in, mull over them. And it was, I would say every person on the committee contributed language and ideas that formulated these. And I feel personally pretty proud with what the committee did here. So I'd just like to share that with you, provide a little background on some of the wording, and say that from my understanding, if we wanted to have the committee make a motion to vote on this, we would have to put it on the agenda, I believe. This is correct, for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I very much appreciate that, Chris. I think these are good words. I like them. I want to think about them a little bit. I would ask that the other commissioners also consider these words, what they think not only mission and vision are, but what core values, what means core values of an organization or a museum, and offer any comments back to Chris or members of the committee. With respect to voting on them, I actually have an associated request that I'd like to make, and I don't mean to usurp the time from this committee, but this is a timely, this is a good time to bring this up. My request is actually, I think, specifically of Chris Orwell and Patrick Moore from both from the museum and DCA perspective, and that is, if you guys can bring forward at next meeting or even prior to next meeting your idea of a schedule for key decisions that need to be made by this committee. I mean, things that say, well, by making this up, by the end of December, we should have adopted a new long-range plan, or by September, we should have this decision made. And the idea of doing that is it allows us to more easily answer questions like the one Commissioner Churchill just brought up, which is, what is our timeline for making key decisions, and that can get us as a commission and the committees kind of calibrated to when we need to bring things forward for specific votes. And if I can ask you two, please, to help guide us in what we need to do to plan the next 12 months of work, that would be helpful. Then go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, and to address specifically Commissioner Churchill's question, I think, because I don't really know what the timeline is. I mean, I think these are fine words. I want to do some consideration of them myself. That may or may not be ready for a vote at the next meeting. I don't know that it needs to be voted on at the next meeting, but I certainly do appreciate that having a firm grasp of what the mission, vision, and core values are is necessary to go forward in drafting the strategic plan or any changes to it going forward. So I think just having that needed decision schedule in front of the commission is going to help be able to give easy answers to that question of when do we vote on that. But on the surface, great words.
And I applaud these. I think in years of working both in academia and NASA and looking at the transition of how we're considering the history of spaceflight, this falls right in line with that. I would say, and with that, I think an acknowledgement to Chris's staff. I know he was in the process of working with his staff as part of how do they bring forward a Herculean task in itself, Chris, transitioning the museum from where it was before he arrived in there. And even I see some of these nuggets of that transitioning from the human space or from the manned spaceflight gallery to the human spaceflight gallery. It's already bedded in the way that they are approaching that within the staff. And I think this does underscore having Chris at the table when we're starting to massage this. He can help support and provide information on how the staff is already incorporating these, how they're looking at issues of diversity, how they're blending these things together, which can help potentially even strengthen the direction that's going in. So with that, I say I think this is great on behalf of the DCA umbrella, the way we've all been going, and pass that to Chris. I think looking at a schedule and sort of what that timeline would be and how we can collaboratively start to solidify some things would be ideal. Chris?
And the process that we went through, and Don remembers this, the process that we went through when we built the last strategic plan, and this is the way DCA has done it, et cetera. I'm going to go ahead and just share a screen here. I'm going to try to, at least. Let me do that and click this and click share. Can everybody see that Excel spreadsheet now? Just thumbs up or a nod or anything?
Not quite yet. I see a black screen. There it is. We have it. Okay,
so you've got it. It's an eye chart, and I can send this out to everybody. So, but this is what we did last time, and it's more. I just wanted to show this to you, just so you can see procedurally. It took a long time. It took from October to August, and actually we went into even further beyond that of that year because things got shifted a little bit. Life happens, and we went through this entire process. But the first bits of it, and I'm going to go ahead and click the stop sharing now so that I can see everybody. The first part of that process was a lot of data gathering and a lot of stakeholder meetings. And you heard John mentioning stakeholder meetings, and you heard that it was not just museum staff. It was not just DCA. It was not just the commissioners. I mean, we had meetings all over the state with folks that were from education, that were from the schools, that were from universities, that were from, we had, just visitors. We had stakeholder meetings with them because it's very dangerous to come up with something internal to ourselves without bringing in all of that stakeholder input in the research process before we put anything out. And the first parts of it are exactly what you're doing here. And once again, I don't necessarily have any issues with what was written up, but I think doing something like that, it may be jumping the gun. And that's where I think when John was talking about getting the staff involved, we could have brought that discussion in and said, hey, here's what we did last time. Here's how we in DCA created it. The commission participated in all of those discussions. And out of that came what was created then. Obviously, it's got to be recreated now because many things have changed, since then. But I just kind of wanted you to get an idea of that's the process we really, if you take a look at how long-range strategic plans are normally created, it's a longer process. And the first part of it, I don't want to skip at all. If we skip that, we are doing ourselves a disservice and the state a disservice. So just kind of wanted to allow you to see that as well, and recommend that I think we need to get together, staff and the committee, and go over the process, first before anything.
Thank you, Chris. That's exactly what we want to do over the next months. And this is extremely helpful and very encouraging, because, we feel like we're heading into a dark tunnel right now. And this is the type of thing that's going to illuminate that. So thank you.
If I could just bring up one last thing, it's that the as far as a long range strategic plan, there's not a need at the moment for us to rush into anything. There's no AAM inspection that's coming up from the American Alliance of Museums. We're living with the current one now. We can make little adjustments to it. I think you guys hit something right on. Excuse me, I used the general term there. The commissioners hit something right on the head there. That was that changing mankind to humankind, just as a start. I think we can make little tweaks and things like that to the current plan and the current, just to get that out of the way, so that, because it is not necessarily as inclusive as it should be, while we're working on the bigger, grander plan and the better rewrites and everything else as we go through this process over time.
Thank you, Chris Orwell. Chris Churchill, anything? Commissioner O'Leary.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Chris Churchill said. Maybe we could call it Chris 1 and Chris 2, or we just call your last names.
Chris O and Chris C.
Chris C, yeah. One of the things that we didn't know is when we were looking through this, and we were looking specifically for where you put in, you had the chair of the commission doing everything. You never put the commission, but we looked at that and said that's a stand-in for the commission. What were the roles and responsibilities? The other thing I think Chris Churchill is saying is, for example, to pursue digital initiatives, in one of the pages, page 34, 1,000 objects online for public viewing by the summer of 2022. So how many do you have on now? Those kinds of things. We wanted to know because you have your goals, and then you have, how you're going to implement those goals. Where are you in that process? And it doesn't have to be a major, 10,000 page corporate report, but, here's the ideas we had in the past. Where are they standing now? Grant writing, in the last 5 years, how much money has come in from outside sources and grants to the museum? All those things seem to be something that this commission could be updated on, that would help in the future of thinking about it. I think we started with the mission, values, and vision because it seemed critically important, and we had enough people in the room to do that. And tweaking from humankind to mankind to humankind is a big tweak for me. So, and the idea of cultural perspectives too is also important. So I just want to echo Chris's commendation of our committee, because we spent 2 hours in a meeting really working through this. Thanks.
Thank you, Beth. Commissioner Fahey, you have some comments.
So I just wanted to say that I agree that we should get feedback from a wide, diverse, audience as to the long-term strategic plan. But I do think it's important that we have something to start with, such as the vision, the mission, and the core values, and use that as our starting point, because then that is how we know we're aligned when we start doing the more detailed work of figuring out, operationally what actions need to happen, what's the metrics we're going to use, But at least to start, I think as a commission, as a museum, at least with this team, figuring out where we want to start. And I think, what was proposed is what we're suggesting as this is sort of our guiding focus, or, this is what we're going to keep in the back of our heads so that we don't go too off course. But I certainly agree, we definitely need input on what we plan on doing. But other than maybe the museum, DCA, and commissions, as far as the mission and so forth, I feel like we need something to start with.
I think that's well said, and I agree that starting with a mission, vision, and value statement is a great touchstone to come back to when tweaks to a strategic plan are made. So I completely agree with that point of view. Any other discussion on these statements or questions for the committee? Okay, please be sure to read those and provide any feedback to the committee, and please feel free to copy me on that and the director as well. Okay, announcements, and I don't think I have any. Chris Orwell, are there anything that needs to be announced today?
No, nothing specifically. Nope.
Okay, I want to say one or two things before we wrap this up on that specifically has to do with confirming and establishing dates of upcoming meetings. There have been a couple of suggestions made that we consider having a couple of additional commission meetings in the first year for a couple of reasons. Number one being that most of us are new to this commission, and there's a lot of work to do to get caught up and informed. And number two, that we are going through a new planning phase, and there's again a lot of work to do. In my mind, I don't have a problem with that. I don't know what the logistical problems are with adding, and I'll throw out the number 2 additional meetings, 6 versus 4 in the first year. I don't know what the logistical issues are with that. I think even when things get back to normal, whatever that means, I personally don't have any issue with holding 2 or 3 commission meetings virtually during the year and having the other 2 or 3 or 4 being done in a face-to-face manner. I think it's important to do face-to-face meetings. But I think if we're going to add extra time to discuss business, which I think this commission likes to discuss things, we could benefit from taking advantage of the lower cost option of doing a couple more virtual meetings. So I'd like to throw that suggestion out there for any discussion or comments as we talk about upcoming meetings and how often to have them. I know that it is a burden on folks, and I appreciate your time. Are there any strenuous objections to meeting a little bit more often than every quarter for the first year? Okay.
Chair John, thank you for bringing up these options here for consideration for all the commissioners here. I'm thinking, I personally I'm not opposed to it, but I'm thinking if it is a virtual setting for the extra meetings, that would make life easier in my case than having to drive and get to these other extra meetings if they were to happen. But definitely I'm looking forward to face-to-face meetings. But for the extra meetings, I think this could be accomplished through a virtual setting. So,
thank you for that. I appreciate that, Paulo. Any other comments? Okay, Chris Orwell, I'll turn it over to you. What is I think we talked about dates for the next 2 meetings. We may want to talk about moving the next regularly scheduled meeting forward on the agenda a little bit. We don't have to do that today, but what are your thoughts?
Well, if you're looking at meeting more frequently, like every other month instead of quarterly, obviously the next meeting would be in July, normally would be July 30th. You'd be bumping that one to June 25th, and then, you know, it snowballs from there. It depends. I think you got to make the decision or think about it now. Do you want to meet every other month or every 3 months? If you want to meet every other month, we could set those meeting dates right now very easily. It's the last Friday of every month normally. And so it would be June, it would be June 25th. I got to get the dates right. August 27th, and then October 29th.
I think the rationale for moving at least the next meeting forward a little bit is to get some clarity on establishing the need dates for major decisions that have to happen. Even if they're 6-8 months out, that's fine. But I think from the point of view of calibrating the commission and the committees to put things on their own agendas for holding committee meetings, it's perhaps more important to have the next meeting, say in 2 months, and then we can make a decision about giving ourselves more time if we need it for committee work.
Let me recommend then that temporarily that we do set a meeting in June, one in August and one October, because by October, things will have kind of settled out, and you can make a decision then as to whether or not you want to shift back to quarterly, because October would be a regularly scheduled meeting on the quarterly schedule anyways.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion. If there are no objections to that, we can set that tentative schedule for now and have those meetings on the agenda. Beth?
So the last meeting would be in December, and that would be 6 meetings for the year 2021.
No, we just set the next 3 at the moment, and what we were saying is try and set them every other month just for the next 3 meetings, because that's what John was looking at to try and get things established: June, August, and October. And then in October, make the decision whether or not you want to continue every other month or go to every quarter. And if you stay with every other month, then we got to take a look at a whole new schedule for the year, because you do run into the December issues.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things I think that's a good suggestion is having the virtual meeting, and maybe the next meeting is virtual then.
It probably will still be that way, I imagine.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that maybe we just alternate the virtual with the face-to-face, so at least we have some predictability for those who need to travel for the face-to-face, like what specific days we need to account for the travel. I'd also think that in the event of inclement weather, we should be able to just switch to virtual if need be, regardless of the schedule.
Yeah, there is always a provision within our rules to allow any commissioners to attend by video conference or telephone if necessary.
Yep.
So it's never a requirement to be there in person if that were to happen.
And we've done that frequently.
Yeah. Okay, I have no objections to setting at least the short-term schedule on that, and then I think at this point, I mean, we would like to have a face-to-face meeting at the first opportune time when that is appropriate to do. And I think that's going to be driven by the situation. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Okay, I had no other comments on that. And so then I think if there's no other business to discuss or bring up.
John, do you want to go ahead and set those dates right now?
Do we need to agree?
Agree on them? Yeah, I think if
I don't believe we need to vote on those dates.
No, but we need to know them. So it's June 25th, July or August
27th.
27th, and
October
what's the
29th.
next one? October 29th.
Which is a regularly scheduled meeting, yeah.
Yeah, if we have those in our calendars now, whether they're virtual or some of them are in person, that would help. And I like Kimberly's suggestion too.
Yeah, so normally we would be having these meetings face to face. My choice would be that, I'd like to have a face to face meeting at the first opportune time to do that. And I certainly don't have an issue at all with doing every other one virtually. We do have to accommodate, I think, one meeting in Santa Fe when the legislature is in session. That's not an issue right now, and it won't be an issue for the rest of this year, so we don't need to worry about that. But I mean, I don't have any objection to doing several meetings a year virtually, just from the point of view of both the convenience to the commissioners and the cost to the state.
And I would just say, it's like, I guess it wouldn't matter to me if it's June or August, depending on if we are allowed to do face to face. I'm just saying it'd be helpful to know now, based on the calendar, which one is face to face versus which ones are not.
We
So
we don't know when we're going to be authorized to meet in person again, Kimberly.
Yeah, that's sort of the problem. My guess is that we probably will have the next meeting virtually, just because I don't know that everything will be completely safe for people to travel yet, or everybody will be comfortable. But I honestly can't say that. So I think if for planning purposes, my estimation is August would probably be our first face-to-face meeting, and June is probably going to be a virtual meeting.
Okay, that works. Like I said, as long as I know which one's the face-to-face, because I definitely would like to see the museum.
Yeah, and again, I would just, in closing, I would urge all of you, as you are able individually, or in groups of less than a quorum, see if, invite yourself to Chris's place and convince him to let you come over, and we'll see what you see. There's really some neat stuff there, and it's good to have that one-on-one time and get to know the folks at the museum.
If I could, John, just for everybody out there, and we can either do this individually, or if there's 2 or 3 of you, because we can do that even, in our situation right now, that want to come over and spend, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours kind of getting to see absolutely everything here and get to understand what has happened, what is happening, and what is currently planned to happen here. I want that. Just get in touch with me and we'll set it up. That's exactly what I did with John, and I'd love to do it with everybody else, and I think it would definitely benefit you to get here onto the grounds as soon as you can. Travel down here. Remember, the state will pay for that. It will pay for that travel for you to come down here, kind of thing. So, but yeah, get that scheduled in and come on over.
Okay, and I will coordinate with a couple other folks who are local if you want to come over at the same time I do, sometime in the next month. I plan on talking to Chris again, so we'll coordinate that. Okay, if there are no other points to bring up, then I will adjourn today's commission meeting. And I thank you all for spending the extra time. I think you're starting to realize that electing me as chair does not necessarily guarantee a short meeting. Thank you very much.
Good meeting, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you, John.
Thank you all. Appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thank you all.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend.